Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's call. I am going to just talk for a couple of minutes while we get all of the technology set up and running. We need to get going live on Facebook for those people that are joining us live on Facebook. So if you guys bear with us for just a second while we get our technology going, that would be amazing. One thing that you can do to help us out, if you wouldn't mind, while we do get our technology going, if in the Zoom little chat thing, the place where you're going to be asking your questions, if you just want to put in your first name and maybe where you're calling in from, that would help us know that you can actually hear us and see us. So that would be awesome. So we're just going to give everybody just a couple more minutes to go ahead and start joining us. And oh, great, I can see Kirk is joining us from Colorado. Jenny's in Chicago. Fantastic. Welcome, Kirk. Welcome, Jenny. Nice to have you here. Shelly is also in Colorado. Hello, Shelly. So we're just going to give a couple more seconds to get people online here and let our technology people get us broadcasting out there on Facebook. There's Lon in New Jersey. Fabulous. Welcome, Lon. Nice to see you. So everybody, welcome to today's call. I'm getting the okay from our tech people that we can go ahead and get started. So I am Heather Doyle. I work in the admissions department with iPEC Coaching, and joining me today is our featured guest, Marlon Ramdehal. I'm hoping I said that correctly because I messed it up earlier. Oh, good. He's giving me the thumbs up, so I did it well. Now, a little bit about Marlon. Marlon is an iPEC certified professional coach, and he's the director of program quality and delivery at YearUp. Now, YearUp is a fabulous organization that enables young adults to move from minimum wage to meaningful careers in just 1 year. So that is amazing. And Marlon is here to answer your most pressing questions about coaching, coach training, maybe how to hold down a full-time job, maybe how to hold down a full-time job and do the coach training program at the same time. Sorry, I lost my train of thought in the middle there. Maybe you want to ask how coach training has impacted his work world. Anything else having to do with his world. One of the things I do want to make clear, Marlon is not an entrepreneurial coach. So he is a professional person who works in a professional environment. He works at YearUp, as I said. So any of those business type questions, you might hear me kind of course correct us a little bit later on in the call because he wouldn't necessarily be able to answer those, okay? So anything along those professional lines specific to Marlon's journey, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and ask so that we can really take advantage of our time with Marlon today. So please ask questions that only he can answer about his experiences and the wisdom that he has to share with us about becoming a successful coach in that professional environment. If you have questions about the iPEC program, like how long is it, what's included, what are the payment options, those are all great and amazing questions as well. And you're going to be able to get those answered by an admissions coach. And our wonderful person behind the scenes, Suzanne, that you can't see, she's going to post that information in the chat space so that you can make an appointment to speak with an admissions coach and get those logistical type of questions answered. Now, you might be wondering, how do I ask Marlon a question? That is a great question. How you're going to ask Marlon a question, if you're joining us on Zoom, you're going to see a little thing like either at the bottom or on the side of your Zoom. It might look like a file folder or it might look like a chat bubble. I can see either of those things. So all you have to do is just type your question in there and I'll be able to see it and be able to ask Marlon that question. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you just type your question into the comment section and Suzanne, our magical person behind the scenes, she'll pull those and she will send those to me. So I'll be able to see those as well, okay? So one last thing, we do have locations worldwide, USA, Canada, Netherlands, Germany, and the UK. So please feel free to let us know if you are calling in from anywhere across the globe, because that's always fun to see. And if you see me looking away from Marlon, please don't be distracted by that. I am paying attention. I'm fully present. I'm just trying to read your questions at the same time so that I can ask him the next question, okay? So with no further ado, I am going to be quiet and we are going to pass the ball over to Marlon. And while we're waiting for your questions to come in, we're just going to ask him a little bit about his journey and maybe what inspired him to become a coach in the first place. So Marlon, welcome to today's call. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Heather. So great to be here. So great to be here. And want to first say welcome to all of our citizens from around the world. So cool to be on this call with you all today on this webinar. And thank you for having me. So what brought me to the coaching world? Wow. Seems like ages ago now. But when I started my career at YearUp, one of the things that has always been, even before I joined YearUp, this was now a little over 6 years ago, what was really important to me was always looking to develop myself. I was far beyond my age. I'm a very young 39. And, I think at the career stage I was coming into this organization with, I was looking to how do I continue to advance myself through what I already knew, and what I know now about the job and the work that I had in front of me. And so at the time, my manager, his name is George was actually being coached by a professional coach himself. And we, in our one-on-ones, uncovered my desires and my wants around what I was looking to grow and develop. And so he then said, well, might you consider this option for the next 6 months, just to explore the different things you want to grow on through a different coaching option. And so at the end of that experience, my coach then turned around and said to me, hey, Marlon, have you ever thought about being a coach yourself? And I said, well, no, never really thought about it. He then said to me, well, quite honestly, you've been coaching me more than I've been coaching you in this conversation. So I just want to offer that as your next step of something to consider. And so it got me super, super excited. It confirmed a lot of the things that I had known prior to coaching, and deepened my understanding of what it now would mean for my career development, and really just my personal life as well going forward. So I was totally drawn in, and specifically what drew me in was, I think, the full development of people, right? Before I got to this organization, my entire career has been devoted to the development of young adults. And that was in the city of Boston. It is now true for also really young people across the United States. YearUp is a national organization. And so I get to take this work with me on the road and to seek different opportunities to create more access to opportunities for the 18 and 24-year-old population who we're now serving, and equipping to get into the workforce. And so I'm pretty excited by that work, and coaching is now wrapped into a very nice package around all of that. So
that's amazing. And I know a little bit about your story. As we had talked about, I had seen some promotional stuff regarding you. And so I know a little bit about your background. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your background? Because I think that that's really relevant to kind of your overall journey. And one of the things we hear from people is a lot of, well, I can't do this because of, fill in the blank. And so I think you have a really unique journey as to how you got here and into the career that you're in. And then that piece that you just talked about, how then that translated into pulling coaching in as that next professional skill set.
Sure. In my welcome, I said citizens of the world, right? And I consider myself a citizen of the world. I'm an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. And so I came to the United States in 1988. And it was in high school, that was 1996. Wow, I'm dating myself now. 1996, I was really exposed to a lot of opportunities of youth development and programs I could be a part of as a young person. Before that opportunity, I was experiencing a lot of things in my communities, various forms of violence, seeing drug abuse happen on the streets of my neighborhoods, in the schools that I was in. And so I really wanted to do something about that stuff, right? And so really my journey started with my freshman year in high school, learning about what the opportunities I might have to be able to have an impact on these types of issues. conversations with my peers. You know, that was so important to me. I was tired of going to funerals to the latter point of my high school career for folks that I was seeing falling to the wayside by senseless violence. And so what was the opportunity for me to have a different conversation with my peers around what are the healthier choices to be had around what we had available to us? And, you know, if we didn't have those options, then how do we seek it? And so from a very young age, I was starting to have those conversations and understanding why people do what they do. Yeah, I come from a psych background. So I graduated from Wheaton College in Massachusetts, and I was totally about psychology and dipping into the sociology of people and just understanding behaviors and habits. And so this has been a life journey and an exploration of other people as it relates to my place in this world and how do I fit into this picture of evolution and people understanding who they are to then show up as their best selves. And so yeah, I've come from a very strong experiential background when it comes to those types of issues, which really helped to create a pathway to what my career is today. So does that help to answer your question?
Absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing that because it's so, I think, integral to where a lot of prospective students are and really trying to figure out how do they find that fulfillment within themselves and the other piece of changing the world. And there's just so many different ways that you can do it and where you start and where you are at in your journey and where you're going. So thank you so much for sharing that. Lon would actually like to know, he wrote in, how has your training changed the way you coach? And also, what are the outcomes?
Great question. Well, so let me talk a little bit about what type of coaching that I'm focused on right now. And so the work that I'm doing in our organization focuses on our leadership. So the site directors or program directors of all of the sites that I'm serving. So I'm overseeing portfolio of 5 sites in the East. And so my work is around coaching these leaders on how to implement our program model and where might there be opportunities for them to develop within their competencies to be able to deliver a quality experience for our students and for the team that they are managing actively. And so what I get to do is I go in and really help to provide resources and opportunities for them to see the gaps that they might be having in program and then be able to coach them on, well, how might you be nimble enough to see opportunities in this particular areas of our program and how you're either executing or performing their jobs. And so I get to really be able to pull them back from the day-to-day and then reapproach the work in a very unique aspect. So it's really cool to be able to do that and pull them back from it because, you know, people are working really hard every single day and it's hard to step out of those bubbles that we often get caught up in to be able to see what the opportunity areas are to improve the things that we're doing. We are an organization that values feedback. It's a pillar of our organization, our practices. Our students, our staff are actively practicing feedback on a daily basis. Coaching is an integral part of our program model. It is also something that we are integrating into how we develop our staff. All of our staff serve as coaches for our young adults. So when we talk about outcomes, we are looking for high functioning, high performing leaders in our organization who can create a very unique and meaningful experience for our students who would have been coming from maybe certainly low income backgrounds, but folks who might not have had access to opportunities, access to the platforms to be seen for the first time as people, as someone who is bringing value to an organization or to projects or to any particular situation or relationships. And so our leaders are charged with being able to create that safe space and to deliver tools and best practices to be able to help these young people attain a sustainable living wage and job by the end of our program. And that comes by way of our staff being really equipped to be able to sit down with our young people and say, help me understand what is your why, what got you to our program today, and to uncover what might be the barriers to their success. And so there's a very, right, if you're in this call, my assumption here, the safe assumption is that you are understanding that there's such value in what coaching means to the development or the evolution of someone's experience, right? And in terms of what they're looking for. And so that allows us to really be able to see some pretty amazing outcomes with our young people. And my gosh, like the development of our team, it's so incredible what the folks in our organization are able to do. We are now serving over 20,000 students across the United States with our program, and we're serving so much more in the coming years. We're a little over 20 years young, and we are rapidly growing, so we're pretty excited about the outcomes that we're seeing right now.
And speaking of outcomes, have you noticed any, what I noticed when I went through the coach training program, I realized that every single relationship I had changed because I had changed like my approach and how I got curious. And instead of, saying something, I would ask a question. Have you noticed any changing outcome in maybe before you went to the program, maybe you were bumping up against somebody, and then after the program, you were like, our entire relationship changed. Did that happen to you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm laughing because I'm thinking back to moments where, it's bled into my personal life and to obviously my professional life. But I've been at, the bars with folks, or I've been in conversation with my family, and they're like, Marlon, stop coaching me. You're coaching me right now. Stop it. Stop asking me those questions. We say this term, oh, I'm curious, or right, like those are some triggers for people whenever they're sitting with me. That just wasn't a part of our normal conversations before, but very intentional. I am very intentional about the questions I ask. I'm very intentional about, if I'm hearing something from you, I want to reflect that back in how I heard it. So I was checking for understanding all the time. And, it actually has brought so much, I know I'm joking about this, but it has truly brought so much clarity to how I approach my day, how I approach my work, how I approach my relationships. The tools and practices of coaching has really opened up a door I never thought possible in my life, period. It's really changed the way that people engage with me in a very positive way. I literally had a friend of mine call me yesterday. So I'm part of this fitness program. And this is a guy who, he will not work out. He does not touch a gym for the life of him. I've been doing these workouts, and every day I post an accountability video. And so he reached out to me, and he would never really ask me this question. There's a piece of vulnerability that we haven't touched yet in our relationship. But he reached out really looking for support. And so I started just, again, asking some really simple questions. And he is now committed to 3 days to do HIIT routines with me. And he's sharing that. He shared it with me a text about 2 hours ago saying, I did it today. Thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm hurting, but I'm going to look forward to tomorrow. So I got him to commit to 3 HIIT routines. I didn't really do much, but ask 3 or 4 questions, right? This stuff works.
It does. This stuff does work. That's amazing. We have a question from, I think it's Lisa. Lisa wanted to know what portion of the course, and she's talking about the iPEC coach training course, what portion of the course was most valuable and which was least valuable?
Wow, so that is a great question. I think that when I think about the parts that were most valuable, there are many instances of that. The one that's glaring, I think, in my memory right now, we were exploring more towards the front end of our experience in the training. What does it mean to have a limiting belief? And that is something that you will learn, right? And my limiting belief was never feeling like I was good enough. And Heather, you were asking me about this earlier. I've had some interesting experiences in my life. And so I am a loner. I am the black sheep of my family. I come from a family, father is an alcoholic. They never really had, a real strong relationship with my dad, strong relationship with my mom. She's fantastic, love her. Didn't really get along with my older brother. So my family attachment was always really kind of tough and, tug of war, touch and go. So it left me alone a whole lot and to explore and try to figure out this stuff out on my own, and often found myself by myself. And so, confidence started to plummet, blah, blah, blah. So I think at some point in my life, I started to, it really impacted, my ability to show up for things that I really, really wanted. And that I got to explore that in a way through the coaching training, by one, acknowledging the fact that that is a dynamic that exists within how I think about my abilities and what I can in fact do. And I remember sharing that experience, and wow, it was super emotional, and very impactful to understanding how do I unpack this thing to then be able to allow it to serve me in a very different way. And so I think the platform that was presented during that time allowed me and many others in that cohort to be able to explore those things for ourselves. Because if we're looking to be really powerful coaches, right, or impactful coaches, then wouldn't it be true that we also have to understand like who we are as people, and what are the things that drive our why into, or our niches, as we say, right, into this work? And that was an essential part of my development during the training. Piece that was least valuable, that's a tough one. I'll really be honest, and I'm not just trying to sugarcoat stuff here. I'm struggling to find an example of something like that. The people that I met throughout the program were super amazing, real working people, folks who were far into their careers. We had some folks like myself hovering in the middle, trying to figure this thing out. Some folks who were just joining in for the very first time, never knew anything about coaching in that aspect, and diving in head first to think about what it might mean to be a health coach or something like that. Like, we had people from all different walks of life. And so they made the experience really worthwhile, as well as the instructors. So I really, I'm being honest, like I don't right now can pull out an example of something that was not as valuable in my experience.
It was a great question. I feel the same way. I was thinking, I'm like, gosh, what would be the least valuable? I can't think of anything either.
Yeah.
I don't hold that against you, Marlon. Like,
if I do, promise that, before this call is over, we can circle back and I'll make sure I highlight that. It's my promise to you. But as of right now, I cannot.
I want to really, it's the coach in me. I really want to thank you for being so courageous and being vulnerable, especially with a group of people in the what you just shared with us. Thank you so much, because I think that that's really helpful and helps people know out there they're not alone with whatever limiting belief it is that they have about themselves. So I just want to, me to you, thank you for getting vulnerable in that moment with us and the courage that it took to do that. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Marcus is wanting to know, could you talk a bit about the core principles of our coach training program and why it can be so transformational?
So I haven't, in full transparency, I haven't touched iPEC material in a while. My training was many years ago now, so the actual principles are eluding me.
That's okay. They get in there and then they come out of us. Right. My training was like 7 years ago.
Great question. Right. Literally my training was 6 years ago. So I can't pinpoint specifics in terms of those examples. However, the latter part of your question was around, can you repeat the last part? I can't answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a bit about the core principles of coaching, of the coach training program, and why it can be so transformational?
Yeah, I think the things that, in terms of takeaways, right? Like the things that stuck out to me in terms of the transformational piece is, again, it's being rooted in what my why was, right? I knew what my intent was joining the coaching program and choosing iPEC. And I also know exactly what my skill sets were and what I wanted to develop. And so if those things were for me really, really clear, I knew what the outcome that I had to achieve was and what the benefits were going to be. And so for me, I think the transformational piece came from an individual level and recognizing my worth and the impact that I can have. And more importantly, I also think that, once I started to practice these things and putting into practice the actual tools of coaching and the skill sets that I was learning of being a coach into practice with my colleagues and peers during the program during that time, I started to see in real time what the impact was and how I might be able to shift someone's perspective just by asking a question or inviting them into a space to explore their own ideas that would then lead to a different outcome that they might not have thought about, but would move them in a direction that was empowering and they felt in control of something that they were trying to get a hold of that they had not experienced before our conversation. And that for me was really transformational, right? Not just for me, but the whole idea around the service of being a coach to someone else and seeing that happen for someone. That's the stuff that is exciting about being a coach, is seeing that beauty, I think, come through the work.
Yeah. And I have two different questions from people that would be such great follow-ups. And I don't know which one to choose. So I'm going to ask them both and you take whichever one first that you want to ask. You mentioned in that about choosing iPEC, and then you were also talking about, the environment that you coach in. And I'm like, I have two great questions here. So Jenny is wanting to know, how did you choose the iPEC coaching program? And I don't know who's asking this one, but this one over here is, what does it look like to coach in that corporate environment? And like you touched on both of those things in that answer. And that's why I'm like, I don't know which way to go with the follow-up. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the iPEC question.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, I was in Boston during this time. I was exploring actually different options during that time, and I had not landed on iPEC yet. I actually was exploring a different program in Boston, and I decided to do the first what they called fundamentals course. And so just a test drive, let me see how it goes. And so used my professional development money and paid for it, went in Boston, checked it out. And it was great. It was totally great. Enjoyed myself, loved my experience. Coming out of that, I said, well, let me explore this a little bit more to see what else might be out there. And someone else, I think, during that time was actually my coach, who I had finished up the sessions with. He also introduced me to iPEC. And so he said, check this out. I know that you just did this, but check this out as well. And so once I started to look into iPEC, I think the difference for me was in how the curriculum was laid out and developed. What I experienced in Boston, I'm not knocking another program, but I think what I saw with iPEC was something that fit a lot more with what I was trying to gear my focus on in being a coach, in terms of being a professional coach. And the curriculum spoke to me more than what I experienced with the other program in Boston. And so for me, during that time, it was very clear. I think the things that were sticking out to me was really around the energy leadership piece and understanding the different levels of how people are showing up in these different spaces. That was one thing I specifically remember reading about, because that piece for me was around emotional intelligence and how was I going to continue to explore this idea of emotional intelligence paired with different levels of energy and understanding how people are showing up in different places at different times. And so based on the conversation, so it was interesting to pair those things together. And that's what was really calling to me during that piece.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I looked at the program too. It just made so much sense.
Totally. The other piece around, the corporate coaching that I'm doing, and it can be, look, we're actually a nonprofit organization, but a lot of what we do lives in the corporate space. And so, working with our leadership is challenging in a lot of regards and beautiful in a lot of spaces as well. And I think, the things that I'm learning about leaders in director type or executive type positions is that they are super convicted in who they are and what they can present, what they can perform on, they're coming with a very developed sense of expertise. And sometimes when I'm working with those folks, it's very challenging to get them to be vulnerable with themselves, to see opportunity even within their own expertise. If they're, not in the space that we need them to be in our organization, because every organization requires a different level of expertise and tailored expertise to deliver on certain deliverables, right? And so I think being able to reflect back and present to them, hey, here are the things that you're executing on exceptionally well, and might you think about these things very differently? Here's the opportunity to think differently about how you show up as an executive director today or a site director today, because of the folks that you are managing who are looking for inspirational leadership. And what does that look like? Because if they're not seeing or experiencing that, and that's the feedback that I'm hearing through my assessment, I'm reflecting back what your staff is now looking from you. So if this is a very important thing for you, because we have leadership behaviors that we follow in our organization, if this is really important for you to model these behaviors, then if you're evaluating that you're not showing up in these ways for yourself or for your team, then what can we think about doing differently today? And I think, that's where it can, again, be very challenging. In my more recent experiences, it's been really important to think about what does professional development now look like for folks. I literally, an hour ago, emailed one of my direct reports a coaching opportunity within our organization to focus on managing versus leading. And that is, again, something that we are doing within our HR space and making sure that PD is available for staff. But, this is something that is very high on my radar.
I'm going to clear up one little question here from Patty. Patty is asking, is this coaching program geared solely towards fitness and health coaching? No, Patty, it's not. I think maybe there's a little confusion because Marlon had talked about somebody who he was talking to about them getting more fit and being healthy. iPEC's program, it's geared towards the professional skill set of coaching. We're going to teach you how to coach anyone, anywhere, anytime on any subject. That's why Marlon can do corporate coaching, and then a friend of his is like, I want to be healthy and fit, and he can coach him around health and fitness because it is the professional skill set of coaching. Which, interesting follow-up question to what you were just talking about, Marlon, because we were talking about what's it like to coach in that corporate space, right? Mm-hmm. So particular to you, you're coaching in that corporate space with your coworkers. But Cynthia is asking this question about many conversations are shifting to having the need to coach millennials in a different way versus how you may have coached people that are like more seasoned. So is there anything unique in your approach with this generation? Because you, with the organization that you work with, you are coaching this real young generation and in the course of 1 year, getting them to move so far in their career. So what is that in a dichotomy like?
Yeah, it's about slowing them down. Which, look, I think with the millennials, I love and appreciate them so much because they bring so much energy and fire and passion right out the gate. And man, do we really need that, because it's what drives just the energy for even more productivity and innovation and all of that jazz. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And for our folks who are just joining us, it's so interesting to say, okay, here's why I know we hired you, and I'm going to invite you to just push pause for a second, because the moment I let go of this moment with you, you're going to experience a train that is running 1,000 miles an hour, and you might not be able to get off. This is stop. This is your stop. You're going to get onto this train, but let me hold your ticket for a second, and let's talk about what it's going to mean for you to be on this train. And I think for me in those situations with those folks is I want them to be very clear on, here's what I understand about your expertise and why we hired you. Here's what I know you can deliver on based off of this experience that you're bringing in. And here's what I want you to learn within the next month of your onboarding process, and be very, very curious and ask a lot of questions, pick apart all of our methodologies and our processes, and just live in the why. Live in the why. Why do we do these things? And make sense of that, because that's going to help serve you well. And so I think for our millennials, my coaching is in fact different. It is around providing a lot more acknowledgement and reassurance. And it's about, hey, I'm working 15-hour days, recognize me. And yeah, absolutely. Like, let's recognize you. And they don't want to be missed in those instances. It's interesting. So I have that end of the spectrum. I also have the folks who are, they're a little bit more reserved. They might come in not knowing what altitude that they should be hitting the ground running at. And so it's then, how do I allow those folks to be seen in their work, and how they might be showing up to be able to feel included into their working groups, and to make sure that their voice is valued and is heard, and they're a part of a community that is so much bigger, and their voice absolutely matters, and it shouldn't be that they're kind of fading into the background. And so it's very interesting to see how those different folks show up in our organization.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying is that having the coaching skills has kind of allowed you to create like this synchronicity across all of these different people and all of these different departments with all of their different needs and ages and experience levels. Is that?
Absolutely. What's really true for everyone, right? Regardless of who I'm coaching, is how might I be seeking to understand? Like, what are the things I need to know? And really digging in on that, and not assuming, right? It's the last thing that I ever want to walk into a conversation in doing, and is assuming. And look, I've learned that the hard way. I've assumed things in the past, and not bad intentioned, but there are lots of things that we approach and we do really hastily sometimes. And for me, it was a really good learning in the very beginning of this practice, to be able to slow myself down. What are the key things that I want to know that's going to help drive the conversation and the development of the folks that I am serving, to get to strong outcomes, right? And so for me, that was really important.
How has the coach training, I've seen a few different questions come in. I'm trying to meld the few different things into like one question.
Yeah.
How has it allowed you to be seen differently at where you work, as opposed to like before you went to coach training? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a program manager when I first started in this organization. And once I started to really dig into these skill sets and the way in which I was now showing up as a coach and as a leader, by all the things that I just really named in terms of how I was learning, what I needed to learn on the front end to then approach my work, it shifted how I was thinking about working with people and being a leader. So that was my first step. It was identifying myself as a leader in the organization, and how was I holding myself accountable to meeting the expectations of our core values and our leadership behaviors. And so I started to really model that in a lot of different ways through these practices. I have since, and that was 5 years ago, that I've left that role. I have been into brand new roles of the organization since. So brand new roles has been created that I've been either recruited for, people have been thinking about me, or I've been planting seeds in folks' brains. I went from a local team in Providence, Rhode Island, to now sitting on a national team for the past almost 4 years now. And I've been in a brand new role ever since. Well, I don't remember. Last time I had a job description was back in a program manager role that was really developed. But it says a lot about the beauty of our organization, how fast we're growing. It also says that I was positioning myself not just as a leader with those skill sets, but also I became a manager for the first time. And man, was it really important to figure out, how do I develop people? It came right back to me, right? Like,
yeah,
most important for folks that were my direct reports, what's going to help them execute in their jobs every single day, and how was I listening to that and responding to it, right? Be that questions. Actually, the young woman, her name is Christina, in Providence, she was my first hire, and she was the one who said to me at the bar, "Stop coaching me," and I can see her till today. But even at that, since I left that position, seeing my direct reports move on to different positions was really great. But how they executed how they executed was all rooted in the things that we talked about, how we talked about things, right? Again, referring to the whys, like help me understand this. I'm hearing you say this. I'm reflecting things back and acknowledging the hardships of sometimes the work. Man, you're working really hard today. I just want to let's just push pause for a second. How are you feeling about the work or the conversation you just had with that staff or with that young person? Because I absolutely saw your body language change in the last hour. So though I was very attuned to how people were performing, showing up on site every single day, what are the emotions that was flowing in the space that we were in? It's very intense doing this work. So I want to be very, very conscious of that. And so that's another point, right? It's elevating our levels of consciousness around behaviors. And so that was, it became so instilled, so important to me as still a manager today.
Some of these questions come in anonymously, so I'm sorry if I get one of yours and I don't say your name. This one came in anonymously, and I think it's a great follow-up to what you were just talking about. This person is asking, do you have what's your biggest win from coaching in the workplace?
Wow. Well, I mean, so I'm thinking about this, but I really shouldn't, because I think the simple answer here for me is it's the aha moments. Like that's my biggest win, right? Like the work, this, and I'm calling it work, but like it's really not work, because it's really just it's human conversations, right, that we're having. And what's really, really cool are seeing these light bulbs go off for people and these aha moments that now sets them in a different direction, takes them in a different path. And that for me is a win. I'll take that day in, day out. We could have had a 15-minute conversation. We could have been talking for the past 3 months on this one topic. But once we hit that threshold of someone seeing something change for them, that for them, like that's a win for me. Like if someone's transforming in front of my eyes and seeing them benefit from our conversation in that way, that's the experience I want to walk away with.
Now, Carlton is asking, and this is a logistical question, but it's a logistical question only you can answer. So great question, Carlton. Carlton is wanting to know, how did you balance the workload of the iPEC program with, regular life, with working that full-time job and actually having a life?
Yeah, great question, Carlton. And look, first I'll say it can be done, right? I think what iPEC does a really great job of is, making this doable for working professionals, right? And so I did my sessions on, I think it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, look, you got to dedicate, if you really want to get this thing done and you will get this under your belt, you're going to sacrifice your Saturday. That's like nothing in terms of the benefit and value add of this experience. And so the Fridays, I just needed to work out with my supervisor, who was actually in support of me doing this, because it was a direct benefit to the work that we actually had in front of us. I had in front of us. And so it was an easier conversation. So for me to take on the learning with iPEC, I was actually really, it was really cool to take the learning from the weekend or from that Friday to Sunday and then walk back into Monday and immediately put into practice. Like I'm just practicing stuff now. People don't even know, but I'm practicing my coaching skills on them. And so it was cool for me in that sense, right? You get to now go back into your workspace and showcase what is the learning that you are coming out of this program with that is now a value add to the organization and to the people that you're working with.
Awesome. And Jenny is wanting to know, she's got a great follow-up question to one of your previous answers. She says, how was the community and mentorship part of your experience? You talked about all the different people in your program. Have you kept in touch with them?
I'm sorry. So for clarity, we're talking about the folks that are were part of the cohort that I was going through with iPEC?
Yeah, she asked a couple questions in there. So how was the community and mentorship in iPEC part of your experience? And then you had talked about all the different people in, like, when you went through the course. Yeah. And she's wanting to know whether or not you've kept in touch with some of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, look, Facebook's a beautiful thing, right? And I'm virtual all the time, and I'm very far from a lot of folks from up north now. But I stay in touch with the instructors and many members of my cohort via Facebook. There's actually someone who lives in Providence, Rhode Island, who actually wasn't even a part of the cohort. That was just a community partner of mine during that time. Her name is Joanna, and she and I are still, in touch. She's like an amazing artist in that city. So I stay in touch with folks via Facebook. And that's just the most convenient way that we stay in touch. Michael, who's a part of our iPEC marketing team, I get to see the beautiful pictures of his family and whatnot all the time, and really connected me even for this opportunity. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to stay really connected to that group of folks, because it was pretty powerful what we experienced together, and we don't forget that, because throughout the program, right, what you will experience is you get to coach each other, right, on anything that you want to choose, but you get to be colleagues in that way and partners in that way through the process. So you really get to know the folks that are going to go through this experience with you. So that was such a cool experience that will lead to you staying in touch for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me when I went through the program was how active all of the community is, whether you're just starting out or you went through the program like 10 years ago. Everybody's there to help you, support you, cheer you on, pick you up when you fall down. Like, it's amazing.
100%, all the time. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Just, we live in this world where there's like a lot of different, experiences that we're all having, but how cool is it to be in a space where you're around like-minded folks who are all talking about, one common thing that you can experience together. And it's just closer.
I totally agree. Kristen is wanting to know, she's asking about, she says, I believe there are different tracks, personal, professional, etc. I think what she's talking about are the different specialty tracks. Mm-hmm. She's wanting to know, which track did you focus on or pick when you went through the program?
So I didn't. So part of the program, right, is like you get to explore and arrive at what we call your niche. And mm-hmm. So for me, I was still trying to figure out, well, what was I really wanting to do with coaching? I knew that, it was around people development, but I really hadn't landed anywhere just yet. And so I think as my time after the program started to just continue to evolve, it became clearer and clearer. And look, I'll be honest with you, you might not find your niche while you're in there, and that is okay. Right? I think what the program is designed to do is allow you to live in that space of exploration, to be able to think about holistically what might be all the avenues that you might be able to have accessible to you now to be a really great coach. And that's the beauty, I think, of like the iPEC structure. It does do a really great job of helping to specify, hey, if you're thinking about this particular type of coaching, then here's an option for you. I was really reluctant to just locking in, and I'm glad I didn't jump, because I think leadership development and coaching is exactly where I need to be now because of my career trajectory, and it's benefited me tremendously. And I think coaching for me now is not just a one avenue type of practice. It now has multiple prongs coming out of it to be able to coach and help other people along the way, be that personal life. So if I'm working even with an executive, to get that person out of the mind space of just being an executive, but how are you showing up as a person? I mean, those can be often two different people, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the benefit of exploring your talents around coaching.
Now, Marcus is asking, this is a great follow-up to that. Why do you think coaching is even more needed today than it might have been 20 or 30 years ago? And you had just touched on like looking into the future too. So I'm going to kind of tack on another question there of why might you think that it's going to be even more important in the next 10 to 20 years? So kind of backwards looking and forwards looking.
Oh yeah, I love this question. And it's one that I've really focused on in the last 3 years, because I needed to figure out, was this something that will continue to serve me even as I grow in this organization and beyond it, right? And the answer I kept arriving to was yes. The why is, we are in a society and in a world that is continuing to evolve in technology. Everything is about technology. Everything is about, reaching out and getting it done really, really quickly, or signing up to something and attaching ourselves to it. What is getting lost in that is real human touch points, real conversation. I had someone, a colleague who I was working with right now, he requested, for me to text him some feedback recently. And I chose not to do that. That was not my way of being able to provide a meaningful response to something I had experienced. And so once we were able to have a conversation, it certainly changed, and it was a lot more of a human interaction. And that's what I will tend to lean on, right? And I think that's what I would offer is, even when you're stepping into these organizations, corporate or otherwise, I think we are seeing this evolution of technology, and we are losing touch with what it really means to have meaningful touch points as people. And so coaching then becomes a really great tool and opportunity for people to reconnect in a meaningful way that allows them to see and experience each other differently, that leads to different outcomes. And so I actually really think that there's an undercurrent of this starting to happen. Our organization is actually modeling this really, really well right now, with being able to push folks to think about, hey, this is coaching is an option here, and here are some different ways to think about the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And just because we are coming to the close of our conversation here, I do want to put this out there. We do have some classes that are still starting, and anybody out there that wants to have an actual touch point conversation with an admissions coach, that's why we offer that. It's exactly what Marlon is talking about. It's not a sales conversation. Marlon can tell you right now, nobody's going to try to sell to you on that.
Right.
It is to have that touch point conversation, to be able to explore some things with you, to see if even becoming a coach is your best next step. So I couldn't agree with you more, Marlon, that as we become a more technological society, we do start to lose those touch points. And we ask for things in text messages and emails, when what we really, our souls are hungry for is the actual human conversation piece. And coaching really does a nice job of being able to provide a way of having that deeper connection in a faster fashion, I guess, being able to get to that deeper connection more quickly, I think.
Absolutely.
Just again, because we are coming to the conclusion of our call, and I don't want to forget to do this. If there's anybody out there that would like to perhaps ask you further follow-up questions, maybe we didn't get to their question. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more. Can they reach out and connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I'm an open book. I am totally open to folks following up should you have immediate follow-up questions, or otherwise happy to have conversations with folks if that's also helpful to speak one-on-one. So just let me know. Yeah, and the best way to, should I share an email now? Is that something that?
Sure, that would be great, yeah.
Yeah, my email address is, I'll give you my work email address, which is my first initial, M, and it's RAMDEHAL @YearUp.org. So that's my first initial, last name @YearUp.org.
Great. And Suzanne, who's our technology person, maybe you could maybe you could type that into the chat for us if you get the opportunity to do so. That way everybody out there can have it. And that's incredibly nice of you, Marlon, to make yourself available to people that do have follow-up questions. So thank you very much, because I know that you are a busy professional. So that's really just above and beyond. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just a couple last, I think we have time. We have 5 minutes left. So everybody out there, if we don't get to your question, I do apologize. There are lots of great questions coming in. I'm going to try to squeeze in like 2 more. We've got one here, and sorry, because it scrolls. So let me go back to this one that I saw. Bear with me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh goodness, where did it go? I really wanted to ask it. It had to do with outcomes around, what do you think is the biggest, here it is. What do you think is the biggest benefit that coaching has created for your organization overall?
Yeah, the biggest outcome that we are seeing right now is that 90% of our young adults go on to being in school full time and being in a career-oriented YearUp related job, right? So we work with Fortune 500 companies, places like Bank of America, Chase, American Express. So we're talking about major companies that our young people are now really exposed to, and then two, would be now working at for the very first time, salary job, right? Having come from either fast food restaurants that they were making minimum wage at $8 an hour, these folks are now leaving our organization after 1 year and making upwards of 30,000 plus a year, right? So it's revolutionary what they're doing. So one, I actually think that we've been stimulating the economy here in the United States for the 20 years that we've been in existence because of the outputs of that, right? The other piece that I would say is we also have our young people that are moving on to be more active citizens within their communities. And so our students are being trained on and coached around not just professional growth and attitudes and behaviors, but what might it mean for them to also be active citizens within their communities? How do we make this thing really reciprocal, right? And so, and being able to get other people into this process to be able to help move them forward. And so I think that's been a tremendous benefit, period, for our young adults. Those are our key stakeholders. Those are the folks that we show up for every single day and we serve. The other piece is, I'd like to think that, for our team and our staff who are, center of my focus as well, is being able to see that, folks can grow and develop in our organization, can move along their career pathways to other opportunities maybe they have not even thought about before. So I mean, look at me, for example. I've been in this organization 6 years. I've only gone up since I've entered, and that's because this organization does a really great job of exploring professional development, having really intentional conversations about growth and what might be my interest and how can they provide resources to be able to help support that. And so I think coaching has been the foundation to all of that. With our young people, it's really pertinent for our staff and exploring these different conversations. So it's really the bedrock of everything that we do.
Fabulous. And just one last question, our last 2 minutes.
Sure.
If you could share one thing that you would want anybody who's listening to today's call, who's considering becoming a coach, whether it's with iPEC or any other program, what would you want their big takeaway? Like if you could wrap up some piece of knowledge as a gift and give it to them, what would that be?
Oh, give the gift that is worth giving to yourself. And that is the gift of coaching. Here's the thing, and here's why I say it that way. We can give all the gifts to other people and all that, and you'll do that. But the gift of going through this experience is revolutionary for me. It really changed my life. And I'm saying that intentionally because had I not gone through iPEC's program, I think I would have approached my work differently. I would approach my relationships differently. I may not have had the impacts that I'm having today. And so give the gift of yourself for yourself to be able to have this experience and do with it as you so choose, right? I think no matter what your focus is outside of this program, you will find, trust me, you will find opportunity to take these tools with you within your careers and within your personal lives and do with it as you please. But really, this is a gift for yourself. This is something that, I really would encourage everybody to think about. What is the transformation that you are looking for? What are you looking to invest in and invest in yourself? Because that's what I did, and that's why it's benefited me so much. And that is the gift that we can always, always appreciate as to how we've taken care of us, right? And selfishly, that is okay, and love and appreciate, right? So that's what I would say for that.
I'm blown away. I'm like, we're definitely just, even if we weren't out of time, I'd be like, okay, we're done. Because yes, I totally agree with you. It's such a gift to give to ourselves. And Marlon, thank you for giving us the gift of your time today. Again, Marlon, he has a very full-time job. So for him to take an hour out of that and give it to us, I really want to show appreciation and gratitude to you for that. So thank you again so much for joining us. And anybody out there, if you are thinking of joining us right now for classes, they're kicking off Don't miss out. Feel free to reach out, speak with an admissions coach. Suzanne has put that contact information in the chat. So go ahead, get on a conversation with them, find out how to move forward. If this is something you're thinking about for future classes, we do have classes in the summer and the fall. So feel free to have those conversations as well. And even if you just joined us today just for the gift of listening in and you're not thinking about becoming a coach, as always, I wish you the life and the profession of your choosing. So have a wonderful week, and hopefully we'll see you in class sometime soon. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Marlon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.